Happy Thursday, Facebook friends. Welcome back to Facebook for another edition of Teacher Talk. I'm Angie Garza, Director of Professional Learning and Educational Services at ROE 47, serving Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside counties. And happy February as well as we head into another winter month. What's exciting for us here on Teacher Talk this month is that all of our Teacher Talks are going to be centered around this idea of college and career readiness, leading up to our very exciting annual College and Career Readiness Summit on Monday, February 21st. But more details about that later. As always, this morning on our Teacher Talk, I am joined by my friend, colleague, and co-host, Mrs. Stacy Dingus, Digital Teaching and Learning Specialist. Good morning, Stacy.
Good morning, Angie. Happy to be here. We've got a special one today. Some people that are very dear to my heart from my past where I used to teach, and excited to showcase them and their work and the kind of path that they're on to help with the educator shortage that we're seeing right now. So I'm ready to get this one going.
I am too, Stacy, and I'm so glad that you mentioned the educator shortage. For those of you who don't know, we annually take a survey across the state of Illinois about the number of educators we have, where we're seeing some of those shortage areas, and the crisis is real. And so one of the things we've talked a lot about is how do we get people interested in this really wonderful vocation that we're all called to serve in. And part of that conversation is about pipelines and pathways. And so our office has been very blessed to partner with Sauk Valley Community College in the development of an education career pathway. So Stacy, would you care to do the honors of introducing our fine representation from Amboy High School here, who is well on their way to implementing an education pathway in their high school?
Yes, I'm very happy that we have some representatives from Amboy High School. I'm working with Amboy High School as the pathway navigator to kind of open the gates to the education pathway and kind of grow our own, as we like to say. So with that, we have Principal Mrs. Janet Crownhart here. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mrs. Crownhart.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to be here. So with me today, I have a math teacher, Cynthia Carlson, is sitting there. She's been with us for quite a number of years, longer than I've been here in Amboy High School. And with her is Ian Eller, a senior student, and Mrs. Carlson is his mentor teacher, one of the three that he's had this year.
Morning, both Ian and Mrs. Carlson. Thanks for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves and your role in the pathway?
I'm Ian Eller, the senior student here at Amboy High School. And earlier in the spring semester, I had an extra PE that I really didn't feel like was going to get me ready for college and ready for what I wanted to do in life. So I went to Mrs. Crownhart and I was like, do you think I would be able to sit in on a class and maybe learn about some teaching experience? Because it's something that I've thought about previously, but I was like, maybe I should look into it more.
And how about you, Mrs. Carlson?
I have been teaching for 29 years and 20 of that at Amboy. I recognized a lot of great qualities in Ian last year, especially while he was in pre-calc. That I thought would make him a fantastic teacher. So when he approached me about being an assistant, I was gladly accepting of his offer. And we've just been going from there.
Mrs. Carlson, I'm just curious really quickly before we get a little bit deeper into what this looks like in Amboy. You mentioned you're a mentor teacher. What exactly does that mean? How are you mentoring Ian? And you guys look like you have a great relationship and you've known him for a long time and really believe in him. So I'm sure that's part of it. But what is your role as a mentor?
I just talked to Ian a lot about, like, after a lesson that I've taught, we talk about the participation levels of the kids and how willing they were to be active and engaged. And like their critical thinking questions that we tried to get them to like share with us what their thought processes were. And Ian also has taught a couple of lessons where he then tries to replicate that. Ian, I taught Algebra 2 and pre-calc and now Calculus 2. So he knows my questioning style and he's like really willing to embrace that and realizes that being engaged in discussion helps you learn better and remember things. And so I just kind of encourage him to always, like, sometimes act like a fool to make a kid laugh and remember what you're talking about. And in fact, he taught my famous quadratic formula lesson where he sang my quadratic formula song. And the kids always, like, if you'll make a fool of yourself, they're more than willing to do that also. And then they remember what went on that day. And so Ian had to step out of his comfort zone of cool guy and be a little bit crazy that day, but he rocked it.
Well, I am so happy to hear that. That sounds like a lot of fun. And I don't know, we might just have to get some song involved here. Now my curiosity is piqued. So Ian, warm up those vocal cords. And in the meantime, I'm going to bop over to Mrs. Crownhart. You know, we've heard a lot from Mrs. Carlson and from Ian about that relationship, that mentoring piece. Earlier, we mentioned the fact that we have an educator shortage here in the state of Illinois and probably across the country as well. So can you tell us a little bit more about, you know, the education pathway program at Amboy High School, and how maybe a little bit about how you got involved and why it's important for you as a community?
I mean, it's one of those things where Stacy came to us and said, hey, the ROE is willing to throw some money at you if you want to get involved in this pathway program. And we said, okay, let's see what we can do. And our superintendent was really on board with it as well and pushed us towards it. I mean, I'll admit that through COVID, things got pretty hairy and hard to continue to roll with it. But when you've got your superintendent behind you, pushing you, saying, we're going to do this, you're going to do this, we're going to figure this out, it definitely makes you push it towards the forefront of things that are going on. But with that being said, it was really nice when Ian came up and said, hey, I want to spend some time in a classroom. I might want to be a teacher in the future. And what can we do to get me out of the second PE class so that I can do that? And so through our talks of the Pathways program last spring, and then Ian coming up to me in the fall, I said, well, this is a perfect fit. We don't have everything in place yet, but you're not going to screw it up for us. So let's make sure that we keep rolling and we'll give it a try. We'll see how it works. You're going to be our guinea pig. And, you know, through that, we figured out some things. Ian even decided that the elementary kids aren't that bad. I did tell him that if he was going to do this, he wasn't just hanging out with Mrs. Carlson. He was going to have to visit some other classes. And he's shaking his head there because, you know, those elementary kids weren't the worst things in the world. He might actually like them. Not to say that he might go elementary, but you never know. And throughout the year now, I've had two other young ladies come up and they've started doing some observation hours this semester because Ian was doing it last semester. And they said that seems like something I want to do. So I mean, we're testing the waters. We're not there yet, although we are ready to roll it out next year. We are having a parent meeting next week. And the idea is to tell the kids, you know, here's the classes that you can sign up for, and here's our pathway program. So the idea is that we're going to get more and more kids involved in this program within the next few years.
I want to ask you a little bit about why you decided to pursue education, or at least, you know, kind of make your interests known. We all know that, you know, it's quite overwhelming when you're a senior in high school and they say, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? But this pathway opportunity gives you a chance to kind of get your feet wet and see if this is really something that you're interested in. So can you tell us a little bit about why you are interested in pursuing education? And then maybe what you're actually doing in Mrs. Carlson's room, like some of the specifics, what your responsibilities are, and how that's kind of helping you make a better decision as to grade level, content area, and so forth.
Yeah. So throughout high school, I've kind of been sort of the student teacher to the rest of our class. Like no matter what class it was, if someone had a question, I was always willing to be able to help them out and make sure they understood in simpler terms that maybe a teacher wouldn't quite be able to explain. So that was kind of where I first, well, actually, no, both my parents are teachers, like you said earlier. So that I've always had a teaching home life, and they were always working on papers and talking about students in class. And so I've been immersed since they've been teaching all my life, so since forever. But being able to do it this year, and like Mr. Crownhart said, going to Central, and I taught second graders occasionally, and going from high school math to second grade math is a little different. But it was nice to be able to see the difference between what it would be like with having to teach a second grader everything to build their core math skills, and a high schooler developing what they already know. But in the classroom, it's usually I go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the high school, and then Thursday and Friday I go to Central earlier this year and the junior high this semester. But I usually have the teacher teach the lesson and then go around and ask kids questions, or they'll ask me questions if they don't fully understand something. And like Mrs. Carlson said earlier, I taught the quadratic formula song, so that was an interesting lesson. But overall, I feel like it's been a good experience to see if it's really what I want to do in the future.
Mrs. Carlson, you had mentioned earlier that over, you getting to know Ian, that you had seen some qualities in him that kind of, you thought to yourself, like, he would make a good teacher. He's someone that could excel in the classroom as an educator. Can you expound on those? What characteristics did you see in Ian that you really think would make him an excellent teacher? And from your point of view as a teacher, what are your expectations for him when he's in the classroom?
But when I had Ian in Algebra 2, he was always very good when I would say, hey, look at this, and what do you think about it? What do you notice? What do you wonder about? And he was always very good at thinking about, how would this connect to what I already know, and what does this lady want me to know? And then we would delve in through a lot of questioning to the lesson. And, his class was always a very active class, the group that he was clumped with. So there was tons of learning. But then when they would have time to work on their, homework, or developing more questions, critical thinking, if someone had a question and I was busy with someone else, they would ask Ian. And instead of just telling them the answer, Ian was not letting them get away with that. It was, well, do you remember when we did this? And this is how this would connect. And he totally addresses the conceptual understanding. Because a lot of times with kids, they don't really care about the conceptual understanding because they don't believe I'm a liar. And so they just want the answer. And Ian would not, it wasn't just about the answer. It was about, let's build on what we know. And it was kind of like a me over there while I'm busy over here. And so patient, so kind to everyone. He's just, I don't know, to me, he just screams I should be a teacher. And I've told him that, and I started hounding him then, and I haven't shut up about it for the last 3 years. And he finally like caved. I mean, I'm persuasive. So he will be a fantastic teacher. And I expect of him what I expect of everyone in my room, including myself, and that's respect for everyone in the room, and a focus on what's going on. And I generally am never disappointed by anyone in my classroom, student, teacher, observer, because those expectations are always met. And Ian has zero trouble. I think he's more mature than me. He has zero trouble with the decorum and professionalism. So, yay, Ian.
Mrs. Carlson, just really quickly, there's two things as I was listening to you share that I was really inspired by. One is the fact that you and I have spent some high quality professional learning time together. And so I was just listening, and some of those things that we've talked about are coming through in what you're sharing with Ian. And so I love to see all of that just kind of, flow. I love that. I love that you're teaching him to be a thoughtful and rigorous teacher. So just amazing. And the other thing is, I think that is so profound is having somebody who really sees something in you and believes in you and pushes you. And so it really sounds like the two of you have that relationship, and that you identified those characteristics in him. And then you just said, I'm not letting go of this idea, and you're coming along with me. So that's just really incredible to hear. And I think every student needs somebody like you in their lives to inspire them in that way. So thank you so much for acting in that capacity. Mrs. Crownhart, I know that you guys are just on the cusp of this pathway endeavor, and you recognize that it's just something that's good for kids, as evidenced by what we're hearing by Mrs. Carlson and Ian here this morning. But the other thing I mentioned is, we're facing this educator shortage in our area, especially. And I really don't think that we've kind of bottomed out yet. So I'm interested, in addition to some of the pathways work that is going on within Amboy School District, what are some other ways that you are trying to address the teacher shortage?
I mean, we're definitely struggling with lack of teachers. We started the year short a Spanish teacher at the high school level. We started the year without an English teacher and a math teacher at the junior high level. And then a special ed teacher was missing at the elementary level. And all of those positions are very, very necessary in a school setting. And then within the first few weeks of school, we lost our high school guidance counselor, which also was a huge blow and very difficult to make up those people when you're missing 5 people that you really need across the district, especially in a district this small. So we have really gone out second semester. We've tried to, or first semester, I guess, we tried to find anyone and everyone who were looking for student teaching placements, anyone and everyone who were graduating at the semester. We were able to hire one of our student teachers from the fall semester who graduated in December as an 8th grade ELA teacher. So we now have that position full. We were also able to get a counseling intern from Northern that has come in January to take over that counseling position. And then, honestly, our foreign language program kind of took a hit this year because we've had to do all of that online. And it's not something that, after the students did remote learning for so long, it's not something that most of them wanted to dive into. So we went from, a very full Spanish class program down to 7 students taking foreign language at this time. So we're hoping, going to job fairs coming up here in the next couple of months at different colleges to try to get some people that are interested in our positions that we have open, looking at getting that foreign language position filled for next year, and, all the other ones as well. Pulling in student teachers is definitely beneficial. And hopefully we will be able to keep those student teachers. We have a special ed student teacher right now that we're hoping will, at least apply for the job come spring, and we can get that elementary special ed position filled. Same with our high school counselor position.
Janet, I just want to take a second and say that with all of those positions while you were out looking, someone had to do the work. And so as a parent of Amboy, an Amboy student, it is not just to you, but to all of the teachers. It does not go unnoticed, all of the time and effort that people have really, and even you, Mrs. Carlson, I'm sure you've had to fill in. Teachers are having to fill in on their prep. They're having to really step up in ways that they haven't had to do before. And that is very, very much appreciated by a past teacher and a parent of a student at Amboy.
These are really challenging times. And so it's a true testament as we work through this that everybody here, Ian included, has been called to serve in this role. So hats off to all of you and all of your hard work and your continued efforts to serve our communities. My last question this morning is for Ian, and it's a two-parter. I'm not sure. I'm going to hold you accountable to the first part. Second part, I might let you scoot away with. But a good friend of mine once said that, college can be a really expensive career exploration endeavor. And so hats off to you for, kind of exploring what direction you'd like to go in education. But can you tell us a little bit about your plans after high school? What's in store?
So over the summer heading into senior year, my mom was all for looking at every school we could and applying to wherever and however you could. But over the last part of the first semester, I started to narrow it down to just a couple. And up until last week, actually, I was undecided between two, which was Illinois State University and St. Ambrose University. And I just recently, last 2 days, I think, decided on St. Ambrose University. So that is exciting.
That's incredible. Are you entering then just as an education major? Have you found your calling at elementary or high school, or have you figured that out yet?
I have decided on majoring in mathematics to start with, and then seeing as I get further along in this semester if early elementary or high school, whatever education I would rather go into, can filter into that mathematics.
That's very sage of you. I appreciate the fact that you're going to reflect on your experiences as you continue to engage with all of those different ages of learners. So I mentioned another question. You've brought it up a couple times this morning, so I have to ask, can you sing the quadratics song for us?
Oh, it's been a little while, but I think I can.
Okay, let's hear it.
Minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 all over 2.
That's awesome. Great job. I must admit, I did not know that song. So I myself have learned something today. Thank you for teaching me. Thanks for being such a good sport about that. That was wonderful. Well, friends, on that note, we have had such a fun time this morning talking with not only Ian, but Mrs. Carlson, Mrs. Crownhart, all about all things Pathway. And really also, it strikes me as I reflect on all of our conversations this morning, how much of this is about community and how much about this is about inspiration and really kind of helping our students to explore, to inspire them, to encourage them in finding out where their calling is. And so happy to see that happening in the Amboy School District and at Amboy High School. So thank you so much to our special guests this morning. Before we close out, I will remind everyone, I started at the top of the hour with the sneak preview that our College and Career Readiness Summit is Monday, February 21st. That is virtual on Zoom from 8:30 to noon. Registration is open and available at our website, www.roe47.org, and you can find that registration at the top of the website under the Professional Learning tab. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on behalf of our special guests and my friend, colleague, and co-host, Mrs. Stacy Dingus. We hope that you have an amazing Thursday, an even better Friday, a relaxing and restful weekend, and we will see you right back here next Thursday for another edition of Teacher Talk.